Like, it's just, ugh, Lloyd!
Is it really your fault everybody mistakes your weirdness for coolness?
Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie Megan. This is Weirdo Book Club, or Boneyard Picnic as I'm known on Instagram and on my Bindery page. If you don't know what Bindery is, it's basically a bookish Patreon where I can grant you access to exclusive, bonus, or early content from me. If you like me, if you want to support me, it's a great way to do it. And I would really appreciate it, especially because I'm having a rough time. We'll get into it another time. All the details are in one of those bonus vlogs I just talked about. But today, I wanted to start out a new series that I'm toying with called Summer of Cinema. I've been watching a lot of movies lately because I've been in a reading slump. And as a result, I was like, you know what? People have been asking me to review movies. Now, it may be only like 2 or 3 people, but that is people. And so I figured, why not start the summer off talking about cinema? And I wanted to kind of like have it be the same, like S, like S Summer of Cinema, and kind of like play on that. But honestly, I don't want to. I'm not a Kardashian. I don't have to have everything be a K or an S or whatever the case. I just wanted to watch movies and talk about them. I would like to humbly welcome you to my Summer of Cinema series. Say that 5 times fast. I am starting out with one of my favorite movies ever. A few years ago, I constructed this blog back when I was still blogging, and it was just a list of formative, like canon movies that I saw, whether 30 years ago or last week, that changed me in some way. And so I'm starting off with Say Anything from 1989, starring John Cusack and Ione Skye. So I was 1 when this movie came out. So obviously I wasn't like in the theater when it came out. I don't even know if it went to theater, but it took me some time to get to this movie. But in the meantime, I saw pop culture references alluding to this movie, unbeknownst to me at the time, for years. Like I saw and heard about like the man holding a boombox over his head, leaned against his car, something about the rain. I heard about it, I saw it, but I didn't know where it came from. I didn't figure it out until I found a copy of this DVD in the $5 bin at my local Walmart. Bless the $5 bin at my local Walmart. I got so much good stuff from there. I got the entire Scream trilogy from there. So before we get into it, let me give you the disclaimer. I love this movie. I don't really see that that's a disclaimer, but if you don't like this movie, cool. I don't know okay. Also, I will be spoiling it. We're going to go through it all. Like if you don't feel like sitting down and watching it, if 80s movies just aren't your thing, but you want to hear me talk about it, you would like somebody to spoil it for you, that's what's going to happen here. If you plan on watching it and don't want it spoiled, maybe don't watch this right now. Maybe you can come back later. But for now, I just want you to know I'm going to tell you everything about this movie. And we're going to have a good time. Okay, so get your popcorn or whatever you need. Snuggle up. We're going to talk about Say Anything. So picture it, Seattle, 1989. We open to Lloyd Dobler, who's played by John Cusack. Let's just talk about Lloyd. His character, Lloyd Dobler, is sitting in his room with his 2 best friends, who are girls, named Corey and I don't remember the other one's name. But he declares that he's going to take Diane Court out again, who's played by Ione Skye. And they're like, you can't take her out again. You've never gone out with her to begin with. And then he starts this like rambling, chaotic hamster diatribe that this is the reason I love him the way that I do. He just starts going, no, we were at the mall. We were together. We were in a group. We ate food. She was at the table. We were eating food. That's a date. That counts,
Yes, I did. I sat across from her in a mall. We ate together. We ate. That's eating, sharing an important physical event.
That's not even a scam.
Thing, just a rambling mess. And I love it. I love it so much. Anyway, he's like, it counts. And they're like, it doesn't. Plus, she's a brain. And brains stick with other brains. And you have no chance. Honestly, we love friends who will just tell you straight. Like, you're being silly. This is a dumb idea. But we also value someone who knows what he wants and goes after it. And that's what we have here with Lloyd. Plus, they're not saying it to be mean, right? They're just worried about him. They don't want him to get hurt because he actually, spoiler alert, is pretty great. But then they're just like, we just don't want you to get hurt. And then he loudly proclaims,
I want to get hurt.
And I felt so hard instantly for this man. I swear, God, I'm already so giggly. We haven't even gotten anywhere yet. I'm sorry about that. So next we cut to Diane in her graduation garb, and she's in the car with her dad, who she's best friends with, which is precious. And she's practicing her valedictorian speech. They really weren't kidding about her being a brain. Wowzers. But they're on the way to the ceremony. It's just her and her dad. They're super close, like I said. There's a whole thing with like the divorce, and she got up in front of the court and said that she wanted to live with her dad, and it was really tragic for her and all that. But they are really close, so that kind of makes up for it. It just always seemed like where she needed to be was with her dad. I don't think her mom necessarily did anything wrong, but she just wanted to go with her dad. So whatever. Anyway, in the mix of all of that, she tells this joke where she's like looking towards the future. I only have one piece of advice. Go back. And her dad laughs and he's like, oh my God, it's so funny. Ha ha. Spoiler alert, she delivers it at the ceremony and no one laughs except for her dad in the crowd. But you know, as long as one person's laughing, you're doing a good job. At least that's what I tell myself. Anyway, while that whole thing is going on, we cut back to Lloyd and he's alone setting up his little camera and posing for a picture in his graduation garb and everything. So it's graduation. Woo! I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was like 20 years ago. Anyway, he takes his picture, his little selfie, and then he bebops his way over to the graduation. Graduation is pretty fun. Someone gets up there, they're singing horribly, but the class claps and dances and sings along anyway. They seem all like good sports about things. So after the singing is done, they get a standing ovation. And he announces a party later at his house and everybody's invited. Super fun. Now it's Diane's turn for her speech. So we're pivoting over to the valedictorian speech. It's a vibe shift for sure. She's nervous. As I said, her joke doesn't land with anyone but her dad. The crowd is very distracted, but not Lloyd. Lloyd's locked in. Okay, he's with her. He's listening. It's like she's talking to him. And at the end of her speech, it's a shame no one else was really listening. She talks about just being afraid. She's afraid of what comes next. She's just afraid. And I think that is so important. Now, as an elder, I know that I was mostly excited when I graduated because I was youthfully naive. And I just thought my whole life was about to unfold before me. And it turns out that it's a little bit more intense than that. And Diane, the brain, obviously knows that. So she talks about that. Afterward, we see Lloyd taking pictures with his besties again, and Corey is there. And one of the moms is going home. I think it's Corey's mom, and she hugs all of them, and she tells Corey, just please don't talk to Joe. Okay, because Corey was dating Joe. Corey is a musician. Okay, she's an artist. And she was in love with a guy named Joe who cheated on her and broke her heart, right? And that caused her, unfortunately, to attempt to take her own life. And, so obviously her mom's worried about her. Please just don't go near Joe. And Lloyd is really good about that too, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So anyway, bless Corey's heart. Hope she's well. Love her. Lloyd asks Corey after the mom goes away. He's like, Corey, I need you to take a picture of me and Diane. And she's like, God, Lloyd, no. Because he's not going to just walk up and ask her for a picture. No, that's not what he does. What he does is wander into frame and Corey's supposed to snap the picture that they're near each other, And he chooses the best and worst time to do this when Diane's dad is gifting her graduation present, which is a car. So she points to the car and it seems like she's pointing at Lloyd, who just casually wanders into frame, stops, and then runs off. And yes, I know that this seems a little creepy. However, there was a whole segment on How I Met Your Mother, which is a problematic show, and we're not going to get into it, but there was a whole segment about how there's a Dobler-Dahmer scale. And if you're into everything that's going on, you're a Dobler. But if things start to get a little weird and you're not really sure and you're not really comfortable, you start to lean towards Dahmer territory. Okay? And I want you to understand that this man is where that analogy came from. Because this man, while it is a little creepy for him to pop into a frame and ask for a picture, he's also, one, a kid, and two, it's happy, okay? So just trust me. Anyway, Lloyd goes home, and where his home is living with his older sister. And his older sister in the movie is played by his actual sister, Joan Cusack, which I love. I love when they pop into movies together. I think that's kind of cool. His parents are overseas. They're in the military. I don't know. It's a whole thing. But anyway, he's living with her, and she has a young child, baby nephew, that he affectionately calls J-Man. His sister's sad that nobody could be at his graduation because, his parents or whatever. And little J-Man is kind of sick. And her boyfriend, Tim, left her. And so she's single parenting right now, which cannot be easy. Lloyd comes in and he's like a ball of energy. And so he's like messing with J-Man and he turns the radio up really loud and his sister starts to like scold him. She's really annoyed with him. The radio's too loud. He's too childish with J-Man and all this other stuff. And why can't you be his uncle and not his playmate? And then we get Lloyd saying another just like forthcoming, blunt, but like endearing and genuine thing to his sister. She's like, get in a good mood. Like, get in a good mood. How hard is it to just want to be in a good mood and then get in a good mood? And he says, you know, you used to be twisted and warped and hilarious, and I mean that in a good way. I mean it as a compliment. The words just seem to fall out of his mouth in the most charming way, at least where I'm concerned. And he also says, like, I'm sorry that T.I.M. left you. I am not T.I.M. And this is just a little sweet moment between them. Like, it shows that camaraderie that you have with siblings, you know, like you can get on each other's nerves, but you ultimately just love and want the best for one another. So she leans in and she's like, I was hilarious, wasn't it? I still am. It's just, you know, he kind of pulled her out of what she's, you know, feeling crushed by all the time. She's a single parent. Her kid's sick. She couldn't be at the graduation. She probably feels some guilt about that. She probably feels a little bit of resentment that her family left her here to deal with all of this. She's also in some sort of outfit, so it looks like she's employed. She has a job. There's a lot going on and life is hard. And Lloyd just breaks through all of it and is like, I need you to get in a good mood. You used to be in such a good mood. You were so good to be around. And she's like, I was, but I still am. Like, it's just, Lloyd! So we're back with Diane and her dad gives her another gift and she's like, you're spoiling me. It's too much, whatever. And it's a ring, something from her mother or his mother. I don't really remember. Somebody's mother gave it to him. He managed to keep it. And like I said, they're close. So in this moment where he gives her this ring, which is very special, you know, she talks to him about her feelings. And she's like, I was standing up there on that stage and I was looking out at everybody and I felt like none of them know me. Like none of them know me and I don't know any of them. And I feel like, you know, she's a brain, right? She's a valedictorian. She did summer school and extra courses and all these work studies. And she's working really hard to get to her goals. And her dad was like her biggest cheerleader along the way. But now standing here at the end of something so large as like school and on the precipice of something so broad as like everything else, it is very scary that she feels like she was like a ghost in her school. Like she wasn't really there. She was there, but nobody knows her and she doesn't know anybody else either. And not to mention that she also like volunteers and helps out at the nursing home that her dad owns and works in. And she wasn't a kid. Like she didn't get to be a kid. And that everybody there thinks she's a priss. And her dad is like, in a million years, Diane, you could never be a priss. And you know, and he continues to support her. He's like, we've worked so hard. You've done so much and it's almost there and it's all going to pay off just like we planned, you know? And so it calms her down a little bit. But then we shift and we're back with Lloyd and he and J-Man are outside hitting the bag, you know, just having fun, screaming. And he's really amped up from the workout, you know, endorphins and all. And he decides that now is the time to call Diane and shoot his shot. So he does. He calls, her dad answers, and he's like, Diane isn't here right now. And he leaves a number for her to call him back. But before he gets off the phone, that could have been it, right? He's like, oh, well, could you tell her to call me, please? Thanks. That could be it. But we're not dealing with a regular human being, okay? We're dealing with John Cusack portraying Lloyd Dobler, okay? So right before the dad goes to hang up the phone, he hears Lloyd say something. And what he says is, she's pretty great, isn't she?
Okay. She's pretty great, isn't she?
What?
She's really pretty great, isn't she? Yeah, she is.
Just, okay. We're still with the dad, though, and another call comes in, and it is someone from the board of the whatever, to let him know that she won the Reed Fellowship. Now, I don't know what the Reed Fellowship is, but under the context clues I'm given, I assume it's a huge deal. So he hops in his little car and heads over to Golden Estates, the nursing home that he owns, to tell her the incredible news that she won the Reed Fellowship and that she is headed to England to study over there. And she's thrilled, and then she's terrified and kind of like slumps down to the floor, which, same girl. And she's like, I have to get on a plane. And literally, same. I just drove 14 hours to and 14 hours back from Orlando, Florida for BookNet Fest because for some reason I just knew that if I got on the plane, it was going to go down. And it's an intrusive thought. It's not based in reality, okay? I understand that. But also with the news and everything, the planes are going down all the time. Some planes are falling apart midair. I'm not trying to do all that, you know? So I get this. I've never gotten it more than I do in this moment. So of course that's her fear. But thankfully she has a dad. What's that like? And he's just like gassing her up. He's like, no, she's going to be fine. And she's modest, but she's happy, and they hug, and it's very exciting. So she's back home a little later, and she's going over all of the messages that people left for her. And she decides to call Lloyd first. And I love that. And so she does. And his sister answers the phone, and she's like, Diane Court. And he just like freaks out. He lunges for the phone. Oh my God, this is it. And of course, he is a rambling, adorable mess. He congratulates her in a ramble. What a day. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, you remember? Yeah, no, yeah. You remember we sat together the other day at the thing? Yeah, I don't remember. We want to go out? Thanks. Are you busy on Friday? Are you busy on Saturday? Were you perpetually busy? Well, what about tonight? You want to go to the party with me tonight? More rambling. And she gets like overwhelmed, but in a cute way. She like sits back and she's like,
You know, and you're not in England yet. You know that, of course. But by the way, I wanted to just tell you that I lived in England for 3 months. And my parents lived in the army, you know, so we lived in England and Germany. I could give you...
He's just going. And then she agrees. She's like, I'll go. He'll be picking her up at 8 o'clock. So after they get off the phone, she pulls her yearbook out and looks him up. And then she kind of has a moment where she's a little shook. He, on the other hand, is thrilled. He like picks up J-Man, is like punching him and fake punching him and just like, just so excited, right? So he comes to get her in the worst but most iconic outfit. She's beautiful, white dress, flower in her hair. He comes in and just starts going off. And I know that some of you out there right now are like, he sounds fucking annoying. And I would like to posit that you've never been more wrong in your life, but I am learning to let people be wrong. Anyway, he's going off. I rarely drink. I'm very responsible. I kickbox, sport of the future. You ever heard of it? I used to live overseas. I swear to take good care of her. Long story short, she'll be safe with me, sir. You know, and she asks him if he'll hold her purse for her, and he automatically says yes. He's just like a green flag all around. Like, honestly, So they get back into the car. They're on their way to the party. And of course, like, again, she saw his picture in the yearbook. She's a little shook. So she asks him, like, would it be terrible if I wanted to go home early? And he's just like, no. Lloyd is literally like just happy to be there. I don't even think that if it went badly, he would count it as a loss. He's just thrilled to be there and have this opportunity to be close to her. And oh God. Anyway, off they go to the party. Everyone at the party knows and seems to really like Lloyd, but they're all a little bit confused. Like, how did you get to go out with Diane Court? How did this happen? But since everybody likes him and he is, like he said, very responsible, he is donned the key master. An honor? No. A burden a little bit. So he is supposed to keep everyone's keys at the party. And at the end of the night, he has to determine whether or not they're safe to drive and then give them their keys back if they are, or keep them if they're not. The 80s, am I right? So anyway, since he's doing that, he and Diane don't get a lot of time together and they get separated often. The first person who separates them is this loud drunk man who just like tackles Lloyd and high fives him with his keys in his hand. And he's really funny. And then someone gets Diane, you know, alone, and they're starting to talk. It's another person who was like in the running for valedictorian, and she's like, you know, you were really important to me because you doing so well made me work twice as hard. And you know, Diane was like, you did the same for me. So she's finally like feeling like she's involved and she's connecting with the people that she felt like didn't know her for so long. And so that same girl asks her like, so you're here with Lloyd. How did that happen? She does a lot of this. And then Diane says a line that is just so simple, but it's just so, oh God, it's gut wrenching for me. She says, he made me laugh. It's really that simple, isn't it? Anyway, on the other side of the party, someone's asking him how he got Diane to come with him. And he's like, I just called her and asked her out. And the person's like, thanks, man. This gives me hope. We cut to sweet Corey, who's there with her guitar. And she's tucked away in the corner with a bunch of friends that are surrounding her. And she's like, I wrote 65 songs about Joe. And if he's here, all I'm going to do is say, hi, Joe. How are you? That's it. Nothing else, you know? And her friends are like, okay, well, we'll see. And she's like, you don't have to be dramatic. But like I said, she tried to take herself out after they broke up. But she is so sick of people worrying about her because she's fine. And he's here with Mimi, the girl that he cheated on, and she's fine, okay? The guidance counselor shows up. What are you doing here, Ariana? What are you doing here? And she's talking to Lloyd outside. He's keymaster, so she gives him the keys. Why is there an adult at this party? The 80s, am I right? So anyway, she's there. She's talking to Lloyd. She's like, you know, you didn't tell me what you wanted to do. It's important for you to have like a path that you're on or a career that you're working towards, and you need to blah, 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 blah. And he tells her the way he does. He just handles every situation really well. He's just like, well, how many of the kids here know what they want to do? I know all of them told you what they want to do except me, but how many of them really know? Like, do you think they all really know? They don't, you know? She says that she wants him to go to college. He says he might just join the military because his family's in the military, but he also says, I'm looking for a dare to be great situation, and no one my age knows what they want to do anyway. So I don't know, but I know that I don't know, you know, kind of thing. He's just so... I have to calm down. I loved him so much. His whole everything. So anyway, in the middle of the party, Diane takes a second to find the phone and call her dad and update him on what she's doing and how it's going and all that other stuff. And like, she's just a sweetie angel. And this party is an absolute rager. And she's just such a good kid, you know? And so Corey, then we see Corey again, and she's singing some of her songs, and in walks Joe with Mimi, and the tone just shifts right away. It goes down to a minor chord on the guitar. The lyrics start to get a little rough, and bless her. And so Lloyd stops Joe, the goober, from he's about to approach her, and Lloyd stops him, and he's like, listen, man, you really hurt her, okay? She's written 65 songs. They're all about you, and she's not well. You need to leave her alone. Stop playing with her mind. She's a human being. But Joe's a fucking douche, so he doesn't listen and finds her later. But before that, Corey's talking to Diane about this again, and she's like, no, I'm just going to say, hi, Joe, how are you? And that's it. And then she also says, it's too bad more guys can't be like Lloyd. And Diane smiles, and then she says, he's checking up on me, look. And then it cuts over to him across the party, just like watching and making sure she's okay. And he's precious, and I will fight anybody who won't fight you. He is so precious. Ugh. So like I said, Diane and Lloyd have limited time to talk to each other, but they're still having fun. And then we do see Joe approach Corey in front of a fridge full of Giant Coke, which honestly, gimme. And then she says her line. She delivers it seamlessly. Hi, Joe. How are you? However, she also says a little bit more.
You invade my soul.
And he says that he wants to get back together. Why? Well, because Mimi's leaving for college and he doesn't want to be alone. Have sex with me. And then she like says a sad, solemn goodbye, Joe. And she leaves. Good job, Corey. I was always rooting for you, baby girl. So Lloyd and Diane close the party down. The high five key guy comes back and tackles Lloyd again. And Lloyd is like, you must chill. And then the other guy is like, I love you, man. It's just ridiculous. And Corey is leaving too. She gives Lloyd a hug, says she's single, but she hates it, but that he's a great person. Just when Lloyd thinks his keymaster duties are over, one last, like he goes to empty the bag out and one set of keys falls. So he has a beer and goes to find who the keys belong to. And the guy is hugging a toilet and completely sloshed. So now Lloyd has to drive him home. Lloyd and Diane have to drive this guy home. And they drive around for like 3 or 4 hours because the guy is so hammered he doesn't remember where he lives. Not an ideal night, but they both had fun, and he's so damn likable, and Diane agrees with me. So she also brought her yearbook to the party and got people to sign it and everything, and she's looking over the signatures that she got, and it starts to make her sad. It's just a lot of like, glad I got to meet you, wish I'd gotten to know you sooner, and all this other stuff, and just kind of hammers home that she didn't really actually experience anything in high school. She just worked really hard and wafted through the halls, it seems, you know. She says that the party tonight with Lloyd, though, she felt like she fit in for the first time. And she says, I'm so glad we did this. Okay. So they talk a little bit more, even though it's like in the early hours of the morning now, and they stop at a 7-Eleven. And as they're coming out, she starts telling him about how she picked her dad in court and all this other stuff. And he stops her in the middle of her story to point out like some glass that's broken on the ground and have her go around it. she compliments him in a way. She's like, I've never gone out with someone as basic as you. But she says it was a great date. She had a great time. And you know what? Once again, Lloyd's just happy to be here. So he doesn't even clock this as anything other than her just talking to him. And he's just happy that she's talking to him. And then she asks him about his summer job. I'm going to throw up. Okay, being a good date. I want to see you as much as I can before you leave. Just give me a minute. Just hold on. And they end the date with a hug. And he's like, I'll call you tomorrow. And she's like, today is tomorrow. And he's like, well, I'll call you today. Oh, it's just like, shut up. I don't care. So she goes inside and she tells her dad about the night. And then she's like, I hope that, he had a good time. And then they look out the window and he is blowing kisses in the middle of the street to an imaginary crowd. And it's just that's really it, isn't it? It's just like the willingness to be outwardly passionate and exciting. When you see it in a man, it's rare, okay? It is. It's rare. They are taught from very early, to like power through or work through your problems and just like shove them down. And guys don't hug. Guys don't talk about their feelings. Guys don't, blah, 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 all this. And so when a Lloyd Dobler walks in, it's just so goddamn endearing and captivating. Like, because you should be able, this is not a soapbox, let me climb down. But men should be able to feel things and talk about them and be excited about things. For the love of God, put the nonfiction down and read an alien romance. For the love of God, have some fun. And all of this is not related to Lloyd Dobler. I've gone off the deep end. However, it's just, that's what captivated me. It captured me. It gripped me. He pulled me in. He's so excited. He's so excited about everything. And he's honest. And he doesn't sugarcoat it. He's not spitting lines. He's not trying to win anything. He just really likes her and isn't ashamed to admit it or show it. And is happy to be around her when he gets the opportunity. What the fuck? It's just like the bar is so low, but man. So Corey and the other girl are talking and, they're a little worried about Lloyd right now because he's about to have to go to dinner, or he's about to have dinner with Diane, her dad, and some of her dad's friends. And, it's just a lot of pressure, and he does that nervous talking thing. Arguably my favorite part about him, honestly. So then they have this exchange where it's like, if you were Diane Court, would you honestly fall for Lloyd? And everybody unanimously agrees that 1,000% they would. So he's at her house and he's seen like helping her pick out her outfit for the night, which is just another thing that you don't get with everybody. That little, it's just so, the little things matter, like helping pick the dress, choosing the nail polish color that they use, like just caring. And this is not a PSA on how people can be better human beings and better partners. But if you take this advice and it works for you, you owe me $5. Anyway, so the dinner is with her dad, an accountant, and 2 employees at the nursing home. And while she's getting dressed, he's like looking at all her brain stuff, her trophies, her medals, her certificates, a literal brain, a dictionary that has a lot of words marked off. And she's like, oh, I used to look up words that I didn't know. And whenever I did, I would like mark it, so, and like most of the words are words that she looked up. And so they're just so cute and they're nervous. And I hate how much I love this movie. And this is why I'm really picky about my my romance novels as well. Because if you watch the movie, there's not a lot of like lush language. There's not a lot of like world building, character building. It's just watching these 2 teenagers learn to like each other and learn about each other and coexist together in spaces. And it just, these little flashes of intimacy. And it's just so good. And it is doable. And I know that it is. So that's what I'm always on the lookout for. And if it falls short, so be it, which is usually the case. Anyway, dinner goes moderately okay. She and her dad are really cute and they're really close, so they talk and they like finish each other's sentences and they have this like back and forth way of telling a story. It's a story about her first plane ride that they tell, and it ends with like her screaming on the airplane. And there was actually a sound engineer guy who worked for Hollywood, and he actually liked her scream so much he recorded it. And so now sometimes in movies you can hear her scream. It's a really cute little anecdote that they have. And at the end of it, Lloyd is very engaged listening and enjoying it. And he says, you 2 are amazing. Like the way you talk, I'm not like that with anybody. And it's just, again, he's just saying something that most people would just let be a thought. And like I said, it went moderately okay until they ask him like what his plans for the future are. And he answers with, spend as much time with Diane before she leaves, which for me and the teenager that lives inside of my soul, that good enough. But of course, you know, now I'm a parent. I understand. And like, you want people around your children, especially children that you've put so much effort and time and work into, like helping them get to certain places. Like you want people around them that are going to help them grow, help them shine, you know, and be that person that you want them to be. So I get it. But like, you know, when he says that, they're like, yeah, we meant a career. And, you know, clearly she's got big plans. What are you up to kind of thing? And it makes sense, you know, but Lloyd handles it the way you would expect Lloyd to handle it. So he says, I don't want to buy, sell, or process anything. I don't want to buy anything sold or processed. I don't want to sell anything bought or processed. And I don't want to process anything bought or sold. His father's in the army and he wants him to join really badly. But right now it's kickboxing, sport of the future. He can't figure it out in one night. So for now, he just wants to hang out with his daughter and spend as much time with Diane as he can. And again, there's two sides of me, right? One side is like, this guy seems a little weird because this is my daughter. And then the other side, which is the majority side, because this came to me before I was a parent, is like, leave him alone. Dinner is interrupted by a knock at the door, and it's a few people from the IRS in coming to inform him that he is under criminal investigation. The dad is under criminal investigation, and he has been for several years. And the dad is like, speak to my lawyer. I have guests here. And he closes the door on them. But Diane is with him when he answers the door, which is arguably a horrible idea. So naturally, Diane is very worried about all of this. So she goes to meet with her mother and kind of discuss what's going on. And the mom doesn't really want to talk about her father. And she mentions like, you know, your room is ready at home and it always will be if you want to come back and, you know, whatever. But Diane brushes it off and she's like, I just want to know that if they ask you about him, will you say something nice about him? And, you know, honestly, that's a nice thing for her to do. But it doesn't really seem like her mom is like I said, I don't think her mom did anything wrong. I think they just got divorced. And it doesn't seem like Diane has an interest in talking to her mom for some reason, even though like her mom hasn't had her in their house. So she was 13 when she went to court and chose to live with her dad. And she's graduating now, so I can assume that she's 18. So that's 5 years. She's kept her room for 5 years. It just seems like, you know, there wasn't any drama or chaos. It just seems like two people didn't want to be married anymore and Diane chose her dad. It always confused me what the big rift was, because it doesn't seem like her mom is holding a grudge that she chose to stay with her dad or anything like that. So I don't know. I just never really understood that. But anyway, that happened. So Lloyd calls her the next day or at some point and he's asking her to do something, but she's like, I'm at work, but you could come up here. And he's like, and she's like, oh, you don't like old people, you know? And then he starts rambling, as he does, how like seeing them in their, you know, advanced age, it's like it causes an existential crisis in him, but he doesn't dislike them. It's just uncomfortable for him. And she kind of tells him that it's ageist. I don't know, I'm paraphrasing. But anyway, that causes him to kind of like reevaluate how he feels about it. And so he does say that he'll stop by. And when he does, she has him meet this 93-year-old woman named Bess, of course, who she's told a lot about him. And he's like, you told her about me? And so she takes him into the room with her, and Bess is really, you know, darling, as they tend to be. And she goes, she likes you, you know, kind of thing. And the next thing you know, they have Lloyd in like the common room where everybody's gathered, and he's introducing the movie that they're going to watch tonight. They're having a movie night, and it is Cocoon. He's clearly a little uncomfortable, but he's doing this for her, and he's, it just shows, for me, okay, it shows that he is willing to like have an opinion on something, but factor in what she says about it and like work towards like a resolution and put in the work and the time and the energy in order to come to an understanding between each other. Even if he thought something different before, he's willing to change his mind and he's willing to do new things, which is another bar is under the ground kind of thing. But anyway, they watch Cocoon. I don't know anything about Cocoon, but I'll put it here.
Hello from the Void. Oh my God. Imagine my surprise when I look it up. And it is a sci-fi movie from 1985 about a group of seniors who trespass and go like swimming in a body of water or something that has these cocoon alien things in them. And then all of a sudden the old people are filled with like a youthful vigor once again. It's so apt and odd of a choice, but also perfect. And it makes sense. I've never seen this movie before, so I didn't know, but how funny. Okay, back to it.
So the next day she says that she feels bad that she's spending so much time with him because, you know, she's not spending as much time as she wanted with her dad before she leaves. And like, it's not fair to Lloyd because half the time she's with Lloyd, she's thinking about other things. And when she, you know, she just feels pulled in a lot of different directions, you know, and so she doesn't want to get into anything too serious. So she puts that out there. She also talks a little bit about the theory of convergence, like good things always happen with bad things and this kind of thing. And she's like, do you know what I mean? And he is honest and he's just like, no. And she's like, I just don't want to be too social. And he listens and he's like, well, we're just having coffee. We'll be antisocial. And she says friends. And he says friends with potential. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, so this is kind of like a pushing of a boundary kind of thing. That is the case a little bit, and I'll admit. But it's also worth noting that she does like him. She just feels like she shouldn't be prioritizing it because of all the other stuff that's going on. You know, so he is kind of pushing, but it's not an unwelcomed push. It's not like a shove. And so the next thing we see is he is in her car teaching her how to drive a stick shift. They're cute and they're giggly and she's fumbling with it and trying to figure it out. They kiss, I scream, I cry, I puke, I die. Then they switch so he can drive and we see the dad watching them, like, you know, drive off. They go for a walk. They kiss under a tree in the rain, in their trench coats. This is like a lot of time, I think, is passing. And then they end up making love in the back of his car on the beach, listening to In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. Yes, I said make love. Do you want to fight about it? He's shaking. So they snuggle together under a blanket. She comes home the next morning. Yikes, dad's worst nightmare. And you know, she's in trouble because she didn't call him and she comes clean. And so she's like, I spent the night with Lloyd, and she's worried that she's disappointed her dad. But when talking about Lloyd, she brings up when he pointed out the glass on the ground so that she could walk around it. You know, I always think about him pointing out the glass when people ask, well, what are you doing with Lloyd Dobler? And she's never nervous around him. She's just kind of rambling a little bit on her own, like a little bit of that rubbed off on her. And so she walks through all of her feelings with her dad and like the arguments. And she says she weighed out everything when it came time to like have the sex with him, you know, and she decided not to sleep with him. And you can see the dad like visibly relax a little bit, but then she says that she pounced anyway. And she says, it's always good to tell you the truth because if I can't share it with you, it's like it didn't happen. And I mean, we could argue about like inappropriate boundaries with parents and kids. Fine, you know, but I understand this want and need to talk to someone that you love and trust about something really exciting that just happened to you. So Lloyd and his girlfriends are in the guitar shop and they're talking and he's talking and they're like, did you sleep with her? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, everything is different now. It will never be the same. And he's worried about that. They're saying it, but it's also like kind of like overwhelmed. And they're like, you know what you need to do? You need to make a statement. You should like write her a letter and tell her and show her that you respect her. One of the other girls is like, you know what? You should just let Lloyd do whatever he wants. And he like, you know, kind of nods at her a little bit and then also produces the letter because he already did it. He already wrote her a letter. And I just die. So he lets them read it. It just says, Diane, I'll always be there for you. So the IRS is back and they are at his work with him and they're following him around as he's like serving people in the dining hall and they're just asking him a whole bunch of questions about his wages and his residence and all this other stuff. And Diane is there and she's listening in and I would be too. And then we see her balancing the books for the nursing home. And her ticket for England comes in today. Her dad brings it to her and she's like, maybe I shouldn't go like with everything going on. And it just doesn't feel right. They talk a little bit more about Lloyd, if she loves him. Her dad is like, you know, he's kicking and boxing and you're bound for greatness. So she should break up with him. No attachments, no strings, you know, because, you know, you have things to do. You have things that you're up to, Diane, important things. And she's like, I know, I've already discussed it with them, which is, you know, you're kind of getting like that there's a voice in her ear. It's not completely hers that's saying she doesn't want to be with him, you know, kind of thing. You get that idea. And so her dad says, like, give him a gift, you know, like let him down easy and give him this pin. And then Diane pushes back a little bit. And she's like, what's wrong with having a little fun? I love him. And dad just freezes and then starts the guilt trip and turns it around on her. He's like, great. That's great. Yeah. I'm being selfish. Sorry, I want you to have everything kind of thing. And he's not being as robust about it as I am. He's being very subtle, but I know a manipulation when I see one. And he goes on, he's like worried about the IRS guys, and I love you, go live your life, do whatever you want. He kind of brushes her off too. Then we see Lloyd teaching kickboxing to a couple of kids at the gym, and he gets a call from Diane. And then we see them together, and he grabs her, they hug. She tells him that she read the letter, it was wonderful. He tells her that he loves her, and this is when she decides to break up with him and give him a goodbye pin, just like her dad said. She's like, I think we should spend some time apart. He stops the car because he's not sure he's getting it. He's like, did you just break up with me? And like, he just said that he loved her, and then she broke up with her. And so we get this cute little sad exchange where he's like, I feel like a dick. And she says, I love you with the things. And he's like, what are you doing with the things? What the thing, you know? And she's like, stop, don't be mean. It's hard for me too. And then he's like, don't do it. Don't break up with me. And so she gives him the stupid pen. She's like, take this pen and write me, please. And he doesn't grab it. So she just leaves it on his dashboard, and she gets out, and he's crying, and they're breaking up, and she's not crying, but she's just barely hanging on. And when she gets back into her car, like she leaves his car, gets back into her car, she breaks down. My freaking camera died. I guess it was all the excitement because this is where everything just kind of builds and everything's just about to crash down upon us. And I hope you're ready. I know I am. So anyway, he cries, and she's crying in her car. They're separate now, and he drives home crying. He stops at a phone booth in the rain. He's soaked, like almost to the bone. He's just completely drenched. He's devastated. He calls his sister, and he's like, she broke up with me. How do I get her back? I can't get her to talk to me. Like, it's all so fucked up. I feel like crying. And then he says the line that like ruined my life. This whole movie, really. He said,
She gave me a pen. Gave me my heart, and she gave me a pen.
he's just so sad and crestfallen, and it's just everything in me. Oh God. So the next night we see him driving around in his car, and he's like narrating out loud to himself into this tape recorder. Like he's recording his voice. It's like an audio diary. And I loved this when I saw it because I did things like that when I was little, but I love it now because he felt like he needed somebody to talk to, but he didn't have anybody. So he's just talking through everything by himself to himself. And I don't know. I just think it's so sweet. But anyway, he's driving and he's narrating and pointing out or noting on the tape all those different spots. And he's like, and there's the spot that she broke up with me, you know? And so he says out loud, he's like, I think I just know too many girls. I need to hang out with some guys. Maybe they have all the answers. So he goes to like the gas and sip, and all of the scrubby dudes from the party, including Joe, the guy who his best friend was in love with. And, you know, when he broke up with her, she was absolutely devastated. They're all there sitting in the back, just drinking and eating snacks and stuff. And so he gets there and he finds that they're all actually losers. And, you know, like red pill misogyny shit left and right. There's like, find a girl who looks like her, nail her, and then dump her, man. You'll feel better, you know, kind of stuff. And then he calls them out because they're sitting there spewing all this advice to him. And he's like, listen, if you guys know so much about girls, how come you're here at the gas and sip on a Saturday night with no girls anywhere? And they all just kind of stare at each other. By choice, man. So they invite him to a kegger. And they're like, we're going to find you somebody good. And he doesn't go. He won't be able to find anyone like her at a kegger anyway. And then he tells them, she made me trust myself and then cut me loose. She won't talk to me. And he kind of freaks out, throws something or whatever, gets like really amped up, and they freak out too. And they're, whoa, dude, whoa. And then he just leaves. So that was a complete waste. He's back in the car. He's back on the tape recorder. And he's like, that was a mistake. And it's raining again. And so he says, like, the rain on my car is a baptism. The new me, the Iceman, Power Lloyd, my assault on the world begins now. I believe in myself. Answer to no one. If you start out depressed, everything's kind of a pleasant surprise. That is my whole life philosophy. Not by choice, because I have been depressed, I don't know, over 20 years now. So it's like depression is just part of me. But I say that in passing, and it's partly a joke and partly serious, that I do try to start at, like, I start from a low point. I've had this conversation with friends before. Like, do you think you're a happy person who's sad sometimes? Or do you think you're a sad person who's happy sometimes? And after years of pondering this, I've finally come to the conclusion that I think I'm a sad person who feels happy sometimes. And I don't say that, and I hope that none of you out there hear that and are like, oh, because that's just the way of it. Like, I'm not actively sad all the time. That's just kind of my baseline. Like, I have this melancholy. Like, I'm a feeler of things. I'm a deep thinker, and I just kind of get very solemn most of the time. But I have, through years of work and coping and all that stuff, I find things daily, regularly, that make me happy. They're like little glimmers of light in my storm cloud, because I definitely am not just baseline a happy person who experiences bouts of sadness. So I do think that I'm a sad person who feels happy. And when I say that line, I've said it to friends before, I bring it up. I'm like, when you start out depressed or when your expectations are low, then when something goes well, you're just like thrilled. You're pleasantly surprised. Like, oh, if you're depressed and you start out with a low expectation and whatever happens meets that expectation, then, you were right. But if you were wrong, then woo, that's exciting, as opposed to being like an optimistic glass half full kind of person. And you start out thinking everything's going to go great. Everything's going to swim through this hole. We're going to just breeze right on by and everything's going to come out aces. And then you have to deal with the disappointment and the sadness that comes along when sometimes things don't work out the way you thought they would. So I prefer my way. Maybe you have your way, let me know. But this sentence, when I heard it, was like, yeah. When you start out depressed, everything's kind of like a pleasant surprise. All right, enough about that. Let's keep going with the movie. So he's with his gal friends again, and Corey is talking to him, like, just call her again. And he's like, no, I draw the line at 7 unreturned phone calls. And then Corey like waxes poetic. You know how deep Corey is. Corey's like, visualizing all of this ripping, like her family's being ripped apart. They're being ripped apart. She and Joe were ripped apart. And he's dismissive. And they tell him like, don't be such a guy. And he's like, I am a guy. And he's like, no, you're not a guy. You're a man. Be a man. He's like real proud in the moment. He's like, if she wants me, she can come to me. And then we see him like almost immediately after call her again. So like he's a lot of big talk, he's like trying to be, tough and act like he's okay, but he's not. And he calls her. It's his 8th and final call, or so he says on his rambling voicemail machine message that he leaves. And she's standing nearby listening to it. Her dad is also in the room and can hear it. And, she's doing what she thinks is right. And her dad is, saying that also. He's like, well, pick it up. And she's like, if I pick it up, we'll get back together. And he's like, well, then don't pick it up. Her dad is like supporting her, but, whatever. He really does just believe this is for the best. So cut to dad. Dad is on a shopping trip the next day. He's buying her a nice luggage set for her big trip, and he's also like kind of flirting with the shop girl and lady. She's an older lady. And, she's flirting back. It's a good day so far. He found a beautiful set. He takes it to get rung up and pay for it. There's another guy who notices that he's kind of got a vibe going with the shop girl. They make like a little nod at each other. And then when he goes to pay, his card is declined. And then he's like, oh, no big deal. And he gives her another one, declined. And so, obviously this is like a shock, a shattering moment for him. He feels like the walls are closing in on him. Spoiler, he is actually guilty of what the IRS is investigating him for stealing money from the residents at his nursing home. And as someone who watched this the first time and didn't have anybody in a nursing home, to the person I am now, whose best friend and grandmother and the person who raised me and loved me and supported me through everything is in a nursing home, this is a devastating, horrible thing to do to people that you're supposed to care for. So, but we're not going to get into that. Anyway, so the money is like money their family sent, government checks that they get, and now, the IRS is onto him, and that's what they're investigating, and that's why all of his cards were being declined. They will soon find him guilty. He leaves the store, and the next time we see him like curled up in his bathtub at home alone. The water's not running. He's fully dressed. He's just cowering in his shower, just sitting there. And then Diane sees him emerge from the bathroom, kind of disheveled. And later that night, she's lying on her bed and her window is open. She can't sleep. She's tossing and turning. And this is when we hear "In Your Eyes" playing softly in the background. And this is the iconic moment of cinema history, romance history, where we see Lloyd outside, trench coat, leaning on his car with boombox, playing "In Your Eyes" loudly, held high above his head, facing the house. Now, she doesn't get up and go to the window. She doesn't look out. She rolls away from the window. But there's no doubt that she can hear it and she knows that he's out there. Changed my life. So the next thing we see is Diane is at the government office, the IRS office, and she is just spilling everything to some suit. And she's like, I need somebody to talk to me. No one will talk to me. No one's telling me anything. Will you please be a little decent and tell me what's going on? So suit spills. He's like, your dad has been embezzling money. He's been stealing from the residents at the nursing home, that, you know, whatever. And she's like, absolutely not. Adamant to not believe. And he's like, look, when you get home, look around your house. Is everything nice, but not too nice? A lot of purchases made in cash. Does he have a stash of cash somewhere in the house? And she's just like taking it in, but not really ready to accept all of this. It's a lot to take in, you know? And she's like, well, yeah, you're trying to turn me against him. How can you think this way? And they say just very bluntly, because he's guilty. And so they have proof. I'm sorry, but you need to get as far away from him as you can. I would take this fellowship, I would get on this plane, and I would distance myself and not look back. That's their advice to her. So when she gets home, she's conflicted. You can see it. She's struggling with what to do. She starts looking and then stops a couple of times where she's just like, no, they're trying to make me doubt you, and I don't want to doubt you. But she does keep looking, and eventually she finds in the box that her ring came out of, that he locked back up and put behind his desk after he gave her ring. She finds like bundles of cash just sitting in there, and she knows that he's guilty, just like they said. She's panicking. She's hyperventilating. She gets in her car and drives to the nursing home to confront him. And she drives her stick shift. She's perfect at it. Thank you, Lloyd. And he tries to deny it, but then she asks him about the money and tells him, I found the money. And so then he admits, and she's like, you lied to me. And she calls him a liar and a thief. And he screams that he makes that like he's in reference to the money and the residents that he's literally stealing from. He just screams at her, I make their lives better, as if that gives him a reason or an excuse to steal from them. It's just, I can't even imagine. Anyway, he says that all of this was for her. He's done it so that she could have a better life. He's built his whole life around making sure she has a good life. He deserves this money. He takes care of these people better than their families do, you know, all this. And then she's like, you let me defend you when you knew you were guilty. How could you do that? He tries to gaslight her and is like, is this about Lloyd? And it is literally like 1,000% not about him. This is about you. Okay. But you know, whatever. She's calling him a liar and a thief. And he tells her like, you take it easy on me. I'm the only dad you've got. So she's really upset. And he's like, you need to calm down. It's not good for you. And she goes, you know what? You're right. And she leaves. And she heads to the kickboxing studio where Lloyd is. He's sparring with somebody in the ring. They're doing, you know, little back and forth. And then the guy that escorts her in calls his name, and he turns and gets a foot right to the face. And he goes down hard. He goes down hard. He wakes up to getting his nose reset on the mat, which really just looks absolutely horrific. I never want to be punched in the face ever. I have made it this far. Fingers crossed. She comes over to him, profusely apologizes, and he tries to be aloof, right? He's super cool. I draw the line at blah, 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 phone calls. And he's like, what do you want? And she apologizes again. And he says, again, what do you want? He's guilty. He lied to everyone. I left home. I need you. You do? Everything else means nothing. If I hurt you again, I'll die. Hurt me again? Not a chance. He's so, oh God. She says, I love you. He says, what?
I love you. How many more times do I have to say it?
One more time would be nice.
I love you.
And he says, one question.
You're here because you need someone or because you need me? Forget it. I don't care.
And he says, I love you too. Then we see lawyers and like discussing terms of whatever. They're like lump sum, time in prison, blah, blah, blah. So after 17 years of being a career criminal, robbing grandma and grandpa, he is sentenced to pay $125,000 and 9 months in prison. Start serving immediately, which is pretty intense, but don't fucking steal from people. And then we like jump directly to watching Lloyd and Diane like holding each other in bed, and he tells her like, just sleep, everything's okay, just sleep. And you can see in that moment that they are just each other's comfort, and may this kind of love smother me until I die. The next thing we see is them at the prison, and Lloyd is meeting with her dad, and she won't get out of the car. And Lloyd tells him that she's like, I brought her all the way here to see you before she goes on her trip because I think it's important, but she won't get out of the car. But I brought her because I think it was important for her to see you. And I think that just shows right there just this emotional intelligence within this young man, this 18-year-old guy who doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, kicks boxing, sport of the future, talks to himself in a little tape player and drives his little Malibu around and has all his little girlfriends that he hangs out with, and he plays with his cousin. Like, he's just so deep and connected and in tune with things, and I just love him so much. So anyway, him and the dad are talking, and the dad asks him if he's going to England with her, and he starts rambling answer. You never get just a yes or no answer from Lloyd. And so he's like, I've thought about this a lot, and I think that the best thing for me to do is find out what I want to do and do it to the best of my ability, and carve out a future for myself. And if it's meant to be with us, we can wait for each other. And this kind of like, the dad kind of exhales at this. He's pleased with this answer and pleased to hear that he won't be tagging along, riding her coattails. But then Lloyd says, what I'm going to do with my life, what I'm going to do for a living is I'm going to be with your daughter. I'm good at it. And he goes, you're not a permanent part of her life. You're a distraction. And Lloyd considers this for a second before saying, well, I'm the distraction that's going with her to England, sir. Like, real proud. Yeah. So the dad is really mad, and he yells. He's like, I'm incarcerated, Lloyd. I hear that in my head all the time. I don't know why. It's so funny. And he's like, I don't deserve to have my daughter use you as the go-between, and all this stuff. He's just like kind of having a little pity party for himself, throwing a fit, whatever. He hates all of this. He hates it. And Lloyd, ever the cool guy, just delivers a letter that Diane wrote to him, sticks around, like kind of lingers around as he opens it and reads it. And the dad's like, this is not good. And he's like, no, it gets better. Keep going. Lloyd was with her. Like, it just shows more. Like, he's just so interested in her. He's plugged in. He's involved. He's there. He's safe. He cares. And it's just, I can't explain it to you. It's just so sweet at the end. He's just so kind. Anyway, he's like, no, I've read this part. Keep going. It gets better. It gets better. And he also tells him, like, if this is the version that she signs off with, I still can't help loving you, then everything's going to be fine. And sadly, he flips it over, and the dad finds that she just signed her name. And so it's a sad moment. And Lloyd does try to console him, even though he doesn't really deserve it. But Lloyd's a good guy. And to console him, to comfort him through that, he's like, well, isn't it just enough to know that a letter like that exists? Like, that for a moment she had it in her to write, I still can't help loving you. Like, isn't that something? Just kind of giving him anything to grab onto. So in the middle of this whole thing, Diane does actually get out of the car all by herself, which is another thing that I think is so much deeper than just surface level. Like, when you see it, it's like, oh, she decided to get out of the car. Yes, but why did she decide to get out of the car? She wrote 2 letters. She gave him the one where she just signed her name. So she's ready to kind of like, whatever. She has a boyfriend who brought her here before she left the country because he thinks that even though she's mad, it's important that she sees her dad and says goodbye before she goes. And that's why she got out of the fucking car, is because she has someone who cares for her so deeply, who loves her so well, that she feels brave and safe knowing that he's there. He already talked to her, he delivered the letter, and now she feels brave and she can come out and face it because she's not facing it alone. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Anyway, so she's there, and Lloyd kind of distances himself. He goes to give them some room to talk to each other, and they hug, and she's like, you could have told me the truth, and all of that. And when Lloyd looks around his shoulder and sees them hugging, he just smiles to himself because he wants her to be happy, and he knows how important her dad is to her, and it's just so sweet. I can't deal with this. I'm gonna have to go watch this movie right now when I finish. They say they love each other, and she gives him a pen and says, write me. He knows what that pen symbolizes. He was there for the conversation they had when she was supposed to give this pen to Lloyd. And now he's getting the pen and she's leaving with Lloyd. It's just such a full circle moment. It's just so subtle and simple and well thought out, and just wraps everything up. So the next thing we see is Lloyd packing and getting ready to go to the airport. His sister hugs him goodbye. He turns the radio up real loud. And the next thing we see after that is them nervously holding hands on the airplane. And, he talks through everything that's going on. He holds up a bag and he's like, I got this, puzzles, snacks, whatever you need. And she's like, I'm okay right now, and he holds her hand really tight, and they look up, and he's like, so whenever the smoking sign goes off, that's how you know you're good. We're good. We're up. We're safe. Everything's going to be okay. She kisses him, and she says, nobody thinks this will work, do they? And he says,
You just described every great success story.
You just described every great success story. Anyway, we get like a long shot of them looking up at the light and waiting for it to go off. And they're hopeful and they're nervous and they're excited and they're just anxious about everything. And they're together and they're in love and they're going to England. And then the screen goes dark and the movie's over. I need a minute. It's not the first time I've cried on the internet. It won't be the last. The way this movie is carved into my very spirit as a formative, beautiful love story coming to fruition on the precipice of the rest of your life. You don't know what's coming and you don't know what's next. You don't really know who you are and who you thought you were and who you thought you loved and cared for you and all this other stuff kind of becomes cloudy in the wake of this newfound relationship and this brand new adventure you're about to start. And the expectations versus what you want, your needs versus wants, and just falling in love and being young and falling in love with someone who loves you so well. And to know love in that way is so life-changing. Because there is so much beauty in being in love and being in a long-term monogamous relationship if that's something that you want. I really love mine and I find new things about him to love every day. But there's something that you cannot replicate about falling in love for the first time, like just falling in love in general, like that experience of like the excitement, the anticipation, the not knowing if they feel the same, and then figuring it out, and these like casual glances and like accidental brushing of the hand, just these things that we've been together so long now, we don't have any of that stuff. We move kind of like in sync with each other at all times. And every single time I turn this movie on, I remember what it feels like to fall in love for the very first time. And it brings all of it back up to the front. And I love this movie and it really does make my day. I know I'm crying, but it's like the most beautiful, joyful, heartfelt, heartwarming tears. This is just, it's such a cute, sweet movie and it deals with a lot of heavy things, but Lloyd is there and I feel like Lloyd is a buffer and Lloyd is someone that I wish I was more like. I don't know. I could ramble on about this movie forever, but this is one of my desert island top 5 movies of all time. I really recommend trying it. It might not be for you. Not everybody likes the 80s style of movie, especially like this kind of movie, like Breakfast Club and this, and you know, Pretty in Pink and those things. It's not for everybody, but maybe my review made you feel like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to take in all the notes and the things that she said. I'm going to notice the little quotes that she shared that she welled up and started crying like an idiot about and just give it a shot. If you don't like it, that's fine. It won't affect me at all because as you can see, I have a very typical relationship with this movie. But I wanted to kind of talk about some of the things that I love on here more this year. And so I recently watched this. I'm in a reading slump, so I've been, you know, leaning into other forms of media. And you know that from my newsletter on my bindery if you're signed up. You should be because it's really fun. So I watched this and like I said, every single time I watch it, it's like I know it like someone I've known my whole life. And it's also like meeting someone brand new and loving them instantly for the very first time. The way that I love this movie is so layered and deep and real, and I can't recommend it enough. If you give it a shot, come back here, let me know if you liked it or if you didn't. Like, you know, we can talk about it. I can be normal about this movie, I promise. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I can. I promise I can. And I respect you and your opinions, and so you're allowed to have them. But this was just mine, and I'm really glad I got to share it with you today. So let me know if you like this video. I will make another Summer of Cinema movie review soon, so be on the lookout for that. Leave a pen in the comments, an ink pen emoji in the comments if you made it this far. Just let me know. I love you. You don't have to say it back. I will see you in the next one.